Hi there, and welcome to another edition of our Art of Advocacy live show. Today we're going to be talking about how in the world can you try to remember all the things that are said at IEP meetings, right? It's like, oh my goodness. So we're not only going to be giving you some tips and tools for remembering what was said at IEP meetings, but then towards the end of the show, we're going to be brainstorming. Now that you have this wealth of information from your meeting, how do you use it? So stay tuned with us because we're going to have an action-packed show from the beginning to the end. So a lot of times when we think of, what are our choices for trying to remember what happened at these important meetings, one, we can just rely on our memory. And some of us, my guess is that some of us might have better memories than others. Two, you could take notes, or you could invite a friend to come with you and your friend can be the note taker. If your district uses meeting minutes, you could rely on the meeting minutes. And the last choice is you could record the meeting. So if you're here with us live or if you're watching us on the replay, type in the comments, how do you remember all the things that are said at IEP meetings? Do you take your own notes? Do you have a friend to do that? Do you just get those meeting minutes at the end and assume, I hope they captured everything? Or do you bring something with you to record the meeting? So if you are here with us, give us a shout out so we can say hi. All right, Raylene says that she records. Cool. And Raylene, can you tell us, do you use your phone? Do you use a tablet? And what app you use? Because I know there's a variety of apps. So I think if we can give ones that we recommend to parents, that would be cool. So if you can let us know, Raylene, what you use, and if you have an app on your phone or something that you use, so we can share that with everybody. What I've been using is an app on my iPad, and I use the app called SoundNote. But I know I have another friend who's an advocate, and she likes to use her smartphone, and she uses an app called Audio Memos. And she says it actually works better on iPhones than it does on Androids. Okay, cool. So Daylene says that she uses a digital recorder. And so that's awesome. And usually the digital recorders are just these, pretty small things. They're not like these big cassette recorders that we used to use. And it makes it really a slick way to capture everything that was said at the meeting. One of the things that I think is important is that we give the school a heads up that we plan on recording. Because usually then they'll want to bring a recorder. The other thing to do is to see what your state regulations are about recording conversations. So some states, it's considered a one-party state, and only one party has to give consent for the conversation to be taped. In other states, it's considered a two-party state, and then you have to get consent from, in this case, both the district and yourself to record the conversation. So we want to be upfront about it. We don't want to be sneaky. And we also want to give them a chance to bring their recorder. what I've seen happen sometimes, if the parents don't give the district a heads up they're going to record, they come into the meeting, they say, oh, by the way, I'm going to record the meeting, and then the district's like, we got to go find something that we can record with. So it just like delays the start of the meeting. So I always recommend that you give a couple day notice. The other thing I suggest, when you give them an email with the notice that you're going to be recording, is to try to kind of lessen that defensiveness of like, oh my God, this parent's bringing in a tape recorder. And I mean, truly, I have been to mediations, I have been to due process with families, and I've never used a tape recording for a legal reason. I really rely on the tape recording as a memory aid. So in your email, when you're giving them notice that you're going to record, you can just say, my hope is that this recording will help, kind of be a memory aid for me. Or if your husband can't come to the meeting, you can say, I really am looking forward to recording. So when I get home tonight, I can share the recording with my husband. But give them a real true reason why you want to record it. And just know that it's not, a tape recorder, a digital recorder, an app on something is not necessarily mean that you're planning on using it for some legal reason. And then the other thing that I've used in the past that I wanted to share with you is this really cool pen. It's called a Livescribe Pen. And so let me pull up a picture here of it. So this is like so James Bond. It's like amazing. So in this pen, you have like amazing technology. And it not only does the audio recording of the conversation, the meeting, the lecture, whatever, but it also has this infrared camera in the pen that will take pictures of the notes that you write for the meeting. And you can then, at the end of the meeting, you can stop, the recording with the pen, but you have captured not only the audio, but also any physical notes that you've written. So let me show you here. In my advocacy toolkit, this is my iPad, like I said, that I usually use now, and I use the SoundNote app on it. But the Livescribe Pen, I've kind of gotten away from. I had a couple glitches with the technology, but I really think I want to try and start using this again because it really is pretty amazing. So you buy this, and I meant to look up the price before we went on the air, but like several years ago when I bought it, it was like about $100, which is pretty amazing because it's got like several gigs of memory in the pen. So you can use it for quite a while. And then when your memory is getting full in the pen, you can plug it into your computer and you can download all the audio recordings into your computer. So what you need is you need the pen, and then you need paper, and you can buy notebooks that have this special paper in them, or you can even, and it's kind of hard to see, you can even download this special paper from your computer and print it off. But basically what you do is, and I've got one meeting in here, is you can start taking notes, and at the bottom of the page, it tells you to press the pin here to start recording. And I'm going to show you on a blank page so I don't reveal any private notes. But But as you start taking notes, like I said, there's an infrared camera in here that will take a picture of everything that you're writing. Plus, there's a microphone, so it's picking up the audio. And so you can go along, and if you want, you can just make some bullet notes. But what I like is when you're done, you press so the pen stops recording. But then you can go back later and you can say, you know, in the middle of the meeting, we were talking about what elective classes my son could take. I can't remember exactly what the choices were. Where you take your pen and you go back to the note that you wrote about elective classes, you touch the pen to the paper where that bullet point is, and it will automatically rewind for you instantaneously, and it will bring up that conversation about the elective classes. So this is just like, I don't know, to me, pretty amazing. Like I said, that it's almost like a James Bond technology. I mean, it's a little bit fatter than a lot of pens, but I mean, what's inside of this is, I don't know, it's just blows my mind. The other nice thing about the Livescribe Pen is once you have your audio recording and your picture of your notes, you can go home and plug your pen into your computer. And then on your computer screen, it will bring up your note page. Then you can use your mouse and click on different parts of the notes and hear right on your computer that part of the conversation. So this is like a great advocacy tool that I encourage you to use and keep in your advocacy toolbox. The other thing is when our son Dylan was starting to attend classes at the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs, I knew if I asked Dylan, so what did the history teacher talk about today in class? I wouldn't get much information. So Dylan bought his own Livescribe pen, and he had a notebook. And what he would do is he would just write number 1 at the beginning when the professor started talking. And then after a few minutes, he would write a number 2. He would write a number 3 and maybe a key word. But when he came home, I would say, Dylan, what did they say at, the beginning of your class? What your new assignment's going to be. If he couldn't remember, he can just touch the pen to the paper for number 1. And right from the pen, we could hear the professor giving the new assignment. So this is an awesome assistive tech device that your child can use in school. So if you are talking about ways for your child to be able to remember everything and they have a difficult time writing notes, this could be the answer. So consider this not only for your advocacy toolbox as a tool, but also it can be an accommodation, an assistive tech device for your child. So if you want to know more about the pen and different places you can get it, I ordered it on Amazon. You can also get it in other places. If you're interested in knowing more about it, just write the word pen in the comment box and I'll get back with you and give you a link for more info. But it's pretty awesome. So the other little tip I wanted to share with you is, what if you have this recording, but it's still kind of difficult to go and find all the words and you're kind of flipping back and forth and trying to figure out exactly how things were phrased? Well, there's a wonderful transcription service called Rev.com, and it costs $1 a minute, so you don't want to necessarily send them a 4-hour tape of a meeting and get it transcribed. But what you can do instead is, if there are certain parts of the meeting that it's like super important that you get how that agreement was worded, you can just take a snip of that part of the recording, send that to rev.com, and they'll transcribe it. They're usually pretty quick, as far as a lot of times 24 hours for turnaround. And the transcription is very accurate. They do a wonderful job of capturing different voices because, in the meeting, there's different people speaking up. And you still might have to do a little bit of editing when you get the transcript back, but usually it's pretty minor. So if you're looking for some kind of transcription service after you have the recording, I would encourage you to check out rev.com. And Tatiana says, yes, that she's used it in the past and she loves Rev. Hey, Jen. Jen is with us, and she says that she wants more information about the pen. So, yes, when our video's done, Jen, I'll come back in and I'll give you the link for it. I don't know. It's just kind of mind-boggling to me as far as what can happen these days with technology. And like I said, it's not only a good advocacy tool, but it can be a wonderful tool for your child at school. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was, we have now these recordings of our meetings, and most of the time we just kind of keep it in our recorder or it stays on our phone app or whatever. But I really encourage you to go back and to listen to that meeting, because there's like such rich information. And what I think is really helpful is if you're going to an IEP review meeting this fall, you recorded the meeting that you had last fall, or if you had a meeting in the springtime, use that recording as a memory jogger. Go back and listen to it, because you'll be surprised how many other things that you'll pick up. So I know I was getting ready to go to an IEP meeting, and I thought, I've got the recording from last year's. I want to go back and listen to that. And it's like so awesome, the little nuggets that you can find. So while I was listening to it, I picked up on different teachers sharing what the students' strengths were. So I made sure that I jotted those down. And then it was like teachers were sharing, I found it was a lot better. Things went smoother if I made sure that I gave them choices of what kind of work they were going to do first. So you want to capture those instructional strategies when you're listening to it on the tape and jot it down, because then when you go to your next IEP meeting, you can say, oh, remember last time we met? You had such great ideas about how things were working. Let's make sure this year we get those captured in the accommodation section. Or, how much time is going to be beneficial. Let's make sure we capture that in the service time grid. So just like when you get an IEP at the end of the meeting and it's your final IEP and it's like, okay, I'm exhausted. I just want to go home and take a nap. And we kind of toss aside the IEP. That's what happens so many times with our digital recordings of meetings. But we really want to play those back. I mean, give yourself a break. You don't have to do it that same day. But I really encourage you to play it back, take some more, notes, make sure that what was agreed upon at the meeting and how it was phrased, check that with what the final IEP says. If the two don't match, then that's a red flag. And you just want to contact the special ed teacher and say, I know it's really hard when everybody's talking to make sure we get everything down in writing of, what our decision was. However, when I listened to the recording, I noticed we said such, and then you can type out what was said in the recording and say, I would like to just have a quick meeting so we can amend the IEP and make sure we use the phrasing that we all agreed to at the meeting. So if if there's people that have been using recorded meetings and you have ideas about, how they've been helpful, go ahead and type in how you use them. And let me see, I've got some more comments here that I want to make sure. But Raylene, you were saying that you use a digital recorder. So if you could type in the comments, after you recorded it, how does that, how is it helpful for you? And then Tatiana has some other questions and comments. And she said that she's been thinking about asking at the next IEP meeting if her child could use it to record lectures. And yeah, I think sometimes teams will talk about, the privacy if they capture other conversations, but the reality is this is being used as an accommodation in many classrooms. So you might have to have a side conversation and help the district feel comfortable that this is going to be an educational tool that will be really helpful for your child. And let me see if we have some other comments here. Yes, and Tatiana asks, we still have to notify them about the recording. I always recommend that you notify them ahead of time, because usually when a parent records a meeting, they want to record the meeting and you just want to give them time to, figure out what kind of digital recorder or app they're going to use and make sure they have it for the meeting. And yes, for the Livescribe Pen, you do need to use special paper, and their notebooks are, inexpensive to buy, but they also give you directions on how you can print out the paper to use with the Livescribe Pen just from your computer. So you don't have to, get one of the notebooks that comes with it. But I'll give you the link for all that info when our live streaming is done. So here, so she was saying that she did record and that she felt like it was a whole new meeting. It was so bad, I didn't realize that during the meeting, as far as listening back to your recording. And it is hard to kind of digest all those conversations, because when you're in an IEP meeting, it's like there's so much, kind of being thrown at you that it's like, how do you respond? How do you, how do you make sure that you get your ideas included in the IEP document? So having that recording, I think, helps us also to reflect. That's what I do as an advocate after the meeting, especially like if I have a distance that I have to drive home to. I'll listen to the recording as I'm driving home. And some of the things that I look for as far as, personal goals that I want to improve on is, how many questions did I ask? Did I interrupt at all? Did I let the person finish their sentence or their point that they were making before I jumped in there and tried to make a point? So having the recording is not just useful for documentation, like, no, this is what we really said, but having the recording and listening back helps you as a parent go, wow, I did a really good job asking those clarifying questions, and look what a difference made. Or it's like, boy, look at how many people kept interrupting each other during the meeting. So that could be a signal. The next time I go to an IEP meeting at the school, I'm going to talk to the special ed teacher ahead of time and say, when I listened to the recording of our last meeting, I just noticed that all of us were interrupting each other so much. So, can we make a ground rule and kind of keep people on track of one person speaking at a time? So the information that you can get from that recording really can help you in a lot of different ways. And let's see if we have any other comments. So Raylene says, while recording, I take a few notes, and when there is something I want to review, I note the time so I can go to that time on the recorder. So that's a great tip, Raylene, because yeah, it's like trying to get back to that right exact spot is really the challenge sometimes when we're recording. But yeah, if you're making notes and you're keeping track of kind of like the highlights, and you can just jot down the time when that was decided as far as what the placement was going to be, or there was a decision made about how much service time was going to be granted. Jot down that time so when you go back to listen to it, you know that timestamp of where to go and be able to hear that. If you have any other tips. So yes, so she says, you're so correct. I learned a lot about myself after listening to the recording, especially my voice. It showed how annoyed I was, even though it was not my intention. And that's it. I mean, like I said, besides a documentation of the meeting, we can use it as kind of a self-assessment. And it's like, boy, I need to remember to start out with some positive statements instead of just kind of immediately, asking in a strong way for, show me the data, show me the examples, but to start out the meeting with some friendly chit chat and, making sure that we feel comfortable and that we are working together as a team. So your tone of voice makes a huge difference. Your body language makes a difference. Now, on an audio recording, you're not going to be able to see your body language, but that can be something else that when you reflect on the meeting, you can say, I did that the other day. I was at a meeting and I thought, and I didn't have my arms crossed, right? So that's good. But I don't know, I felt like maybe I was like too forward at the table and too direct, and maybe I could have sat back a little bit in my chair. So all of these things sound like, kind of trivial, but when we're working with people and we're building relationships and we're trying to collaborate, body language, tone of voice, all of that really does impact on how we see each other and how well our message is going to be received. So I just am so glad that you are here live with us, because these are great comments and great tips. If you're watching the replay, feel free to comment, because people can always come back and watch the replay and they can see your comments and respond to them. So let me see if we have any other tips or questions. I think we did a great job. So I just want to thank you for always being here and wanting to improve your advocacy skills for your child. There are ways that we can use technology to help us so we don't forget what happened at the meeting, so we don't forget how we sounded at the meeting. So I encourage you to explore ideas. It can be as simple as a digital recorder, something on your phone or your iPad or tablet. Remember, there are transcription services available. The one that I really recommend is rev.com. And I recommend, if you only want to get a piece of it transcribed, to just give them that snippet of your audio. Until we come back on next Thursday, our show is always live Thursdays at noon Mountain Time. So until next Thursday, I hope you have a wonderful week. If your kids are back in school, I hope these first few days have been going well. Keep those lines of communication open. The more we can build, more trusting relationships, the better it's going to be for our kiddos during the school year. So enjoy your week and your upcoming weekend, and I shall see you next Thursday. Take care.